1 in 10 people over the age of 60 is walking around right now with an organ that has already stopped working. Not hurting, not screaming, just quietly failing. And that person has absolutely no idea. They go to work, they go grocery shopping, completely unaware. This organ does not hurt until it is far too late. It does not shoot pain, does not stab, does not sound an obvious alarm. It silently digests itself using its own enzymes. This process has a name, autolysis. That is self-digestion. The organ's own chemicals begin breaking down the organ itself rather than your food. And while this is happening, a person can sit down to a perfectly ordinary breakfast, eat exactly what is destroying them, and feel completely fine. In December of 2024, the journal The Lancet published a major review of the global data. Over the past 30 years, the number of people living with chronic inflammation of the pancreas has more than doubled. Not increased by 20%. Doubled. According to clinical guidelines published in 2024, up to 50 people in every 100,000 currently suffer from chronic pancreatitis. That is chronic, ongoing inflammation of the pancreas. And the most alarming detail in that data is this. The average age of diagnosis has dropped from 50 years old to 39. This disease is getting younger. It no longer belongs to the elderly. It is coming for people in the middle of their lives, in the middle of their careers, with young kids at home. Now, the main story. Most people believe alcohol is the pancreas's #1 enemy. And yes, alcohol is responsible for 60 to 70% of acute pancreatitis cases. Acute pancreatitis is a sudden, severe, dangerous attack of inflammation. But I am not talking about heavy drinkers right now. I am talking about you. The person who lives a normal life, drinks rarely or not at all, tries to eat reasonably well, and still ends up with that persistent heaviness under the left rib, bloating, and a bottle of digestive enzymes that never seems to get better. Why does that happen? Because the real threats are hiding inside your daily habits, inside what you eat for breakfast, inside how often you sit down to eat, inside what you do in the 20 minutes after a meal, and even inside what you are thinking about before you fall asleep at night. 5 habits. 4 of them you probably consider completely normal. The 5th one has nothing to do with food at all. But before we get there, you need to understand exactly why this organ is so vulnerable. Because once you understand the mechanism, everything else makes sense. The pancreas weighs roughly 80 grams, less than a typical chocolate bar. But those 80 grams carry out 2 enormous jobs that your entire body depends on. The first job? Producing digestive enzymes. Without these enzymes, nothing you eat gets broken down. Not protein, not fat, not a single carbohydrate. Every bite of food you consume in a day is only processed because this organ releases the right chemicals at the right moment. The second job, producing insulin. Insulin is the hormone that controls blood sugar. It signals your cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. If insulin fails, sugar begins corroding your blood vessels, your nerves, your kidneys, and the retina of your eyes. One small organ, 2 completely critical systems. Digest everything you eat and keep your blood chemistry from destroying you. Now, here is where the danger comes in. The enzymes the pancreas produces are powerful enough to digest meat, fat, and starch, which means they are powerful enough to digest the pancreas itself. Normally, these enzymes stay safely inactive until they reach the small intestine, where they are supposed to do their job. But when something goes wrong, when pressure builds inside the gland, when ducts become blocked or inflamed, these enzymes activate inside the organ. They stop waiting for the intestine. They start digesting the pancreas from the inside. That is autolysis. That is the biochemical mechanism that your daily habits can either trigger or prevent. The statistics around chronic pancreatic disease are not abstract. They are a direct, personal warning. If chronic inflammation runs for more than 20 years, the risk of it converting into a malignant tumor, cancer, increases by a factor of 5. In the first 10 years of chronic disease, 1 in 5 patients dies from complications. In 20 years, it is 1 in 2. I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying it because once you understand the cost of every day you continue the habits I'm about to describe, the motivation to change becomes very concrete. And here is the genuinely good news, not the marketing kind. The pancreas responds. Remove the irritants, and it begins to recover. Not in a year. Many patients feel a real difference within 7 to 10 days. The heaviness lifts, the bloating quiets, the nagging ache under the left rib fades. But to get there, you need to know exactly what you are doing wrong. So, let us start with habit number 1. Be honest with yourself for a moment. What does a typical morning look like for most people? A white bread roll with butter and sweet tea, cream of wheat with sugar and jam, or, and this is the one that catches people most off guard, a full glass of packaged juice, orange, apple, tropical blend. The label says no added sugar, and so people drink an entire glass without a second thought. What is happening inside the body at that exact moment is a small catastrophe. Here is the physiology. You wake up after 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep. Your body has been fasting all night. Blood sugar is at its lowest point. The pancreas has been resting. And then you pour a heavy dose of fast-absorbing carbohydrates directly into an empty stomach. Packaged juice, a white roll, sweetened porridge, all of it hits the bloodstream almost instantly. Blood sugar spikes sharply. The pancreas receives an emergency signal, release a massive surge of insulin. Not gradually, not gently, all at once. This is the equivalent of waking a sleeping person every single morning by throwing a bucket of ice water on them. 365 mornings a year, year after year. Eventually, that person stops functioning the way they should. But that is only half of what is happening. At the same moment the pancreas is rushing out insulin to manage the sugar spike, it also needs to release digestive enzymes because food just entered the stomach. Double load. 1 80-gram organ simultaneously managing a blood sugar emergency and a full digestion response, from a dead stop. It handles this for a day, a month, a year, 10 years, and then it starts to fail. A separate word about packaged fruit juice specifically. Many people genuinely believe it is a healthy swap for soda. It is not. A single glass of orange juice contains the sugar equivalent of 5 to 6 teaspoons. And the fructose in that juice behaves differently from table sugar. Fructose bypasses the bloodstream and goes directly to the liver, overwhelming it and triggering a release of fatty acids that damage the pancreas. So, that morning glass of juice delivers a double strike simultaneously. Fructose hammers the liver, while glucose hammers the pancreas. You think you are drinking vitamins. You are actually running 2 damaging processes at once, every single morning. What should you do instead? The morning needs to begin gently. The first thing your pancreas needs after a night of rest is not sugar. It is warm water. Plain, clean, warm water. 1 glass, sipped slowly, 20 to 30 minutes before food. This allows the organ to wake up without stress, without a sudden demand. Then breakfast. The golden rule is this: the first thing on your plate should be protein or fiber. Never fast carbohydrates. Not sweetened oatmeal, not a white roll, not juice. A soft-boiled or hard-boiled egg. Plain cottage cheese, unflavored, around 5% fat. A small piece of boiled chicken with cucumber. Rolled oats, not instant oats, but whole grain oats cooked in water without sugar. If you want a touch of sweetness, half a teaspoon of honey, no more than that. When protein or fiber comes first, blood sugar rises slowly and steadily. The pancreas works at a calm, sustainable pace. No emergency insulin surge, no double load on an empty organ. Memorize the sequence. Warm water, pause 20 minutes, protein or fiber, and only then, if you want it, a small portion of complex carbohydrates. In exactly that order, every morning. That heaviness after meals, the bloating, the dull ache under the left rib. This is not aging. This is your pancreas signaling. It has been trying to tell you something for a long time. You have just learned to ignore it. But the most dangerous habit is not actually what you eat for breakfast. The most dangerous habit is how often you eat and how much you put on your plate in a single sitting. This is habit number 2, and it is the one that causes the pancreas to suffocate. The same pattern appears in patient after patient. In the morning, tea with a sandwich, eaten standing up, already late. During the day, nothing, or whatever was convenient. And then in the evening, a full spread. Soup, a main course, bread, a sweet drink, and then tea with cookies afterward. One sitting. The food that should have been distributed across 3 or 4 separate meals, eaten all at once. Here is what happens to the pancreas. Think of a small pump designed to deliver water in a steady, thin stream. Then someone demands it fill a fire hose in 5 minutes. The gland receives the signal. Enormous quantities of protein, fat, and carbohydrate have arrived simultaneously in massive amounts. Release a massive enzyme response immediately. The ducts, the thin internal tubes through which enzyme fluid flows, fill beyond capacity. Pressure inside the organ builds. The enzymes cannot reach the intestine fast enough. They back up. They activate inside the gland itself. That is autolysis again, triggered not by alcohol or disease, but by your perfectly ordinary eating schedule. There is an additional risk that most people never hear about. When you eat infrequently and in large portions, bile, the digestive fluid stored in the gallbladder, stagnates between meals. It thickens, concentrates, and eventually forms crystals, and then stones. The bile duct and the pancreatic duct share a single entry point into the small intestine. If a stone becomes lodged at that shared junction, both ducts are blocked simultaneously. The pancreas cannot drain. Pressure builds. Acute inflammation follows, the kind that ends in the emergency room. I have seen this happen. Emergency surgery, intensive care, critical illness, all because someone's default eating pattern was 1 large meal a day. Here is something remarkable. For centuries, people in the Caucasus region, in Abkhazia, Dagestan, the mountain communities of Georgia, were known for exceptional longevity. Researchers who studied the daily lives of these long-living populations noticed one consistent pattern. They never ate until they were full. They ate 5 to 6 times a day in small amounts. In the morning, a little soft cheese with herbs and flatbread. 2 to 3 hours later, a small handful of nuts or a piece of fruit. At midday, a modest bowl of soup with fresh greens. Another light bite in the afternoon. In the evening, a simple dish, often something fermented. A cornerstone of that diet was a fermented dairy drink called matsoni. Why does this matter for the pancreas? Matsoni contains specific strains of lactic acid bacteria, Thermophilus streptococcus and Lactobacillus bulgaricus. These bacteria create an intestinal environment that reduces inflammatory pressure on the entire digestive system, including the pancreas. Additionally, the protein in matsoni is already partially broken down by bacterial fermentation before it enters the body, so the pancreas does not have to work as hard to process it. If you cannot find matsoni, the straightforward alternative is regular kefir, the fermented milk drink available in any supermarket. Choose kefir with a fat content between 2.5 and 3.5%, and make sure it is fresh, no more than 3 days old. Fresh kefir carries live lactic acid bacteria. If you can find acidophilus milk, even better. It contains Lactobacillus acidophilus, a strain particularly beneficial for pancreatic health. If you want to go further, you can purchase a dry starter culture from a pharmacy or health food store and make your own fermented drink at home. 1 liter of milk, 1 packet of starter culture, 12 hours in a warm spot, and you have a living product essentially identical to what the Caucasian centenarians drank every day. The principle is simple. Eat more often, but less at each sitting. 4 to 5 times a day. Portions no larger than 2 of your fists. That is a practical measure you can use immediately. Between main meals, a light snack. Kefir, a small handful of walnuts, a small apple. This keeps the pancreas working in a sustainable rhythm without ever overwhelming it. You might think, eat right, eat often, and everything will be fine. Not quite. Because there is a third habit that can cancel out everything else you are doing. And most people consider it a simple pleasure, a reward, something entirely harmless. It involves one specific combination of foods on your plate. This combination causes the pancreas to accumulate fat. This is habit number 3. Think about the last celebration or holiday meal you had. A birthday, a holiday dinner, Sunday lunch with family. What was on the table? Rich potato salad with mayonnaise, layered salads, again with mayonnaise and boiled vegetables, fried chicken, pastries, and for dessert, a slice of rich cake. Layers of puff pastry soaked in fatty cream, dusted with powdered sugar. Fat and sugar combined in a single piece. And that slice, that entirely ordinary, festive, celebrated dessert, is a slow-release weapon against your pancreas. Why is the combination of fat and sugar so dangerous? Because it forces the pancreas to work on 2 completely separate, high-demand systems simultaneously and at full intensity. When you eat fat, the pancreas produces lipase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down dietary fats. Fat digestion is the heaviest digestive work the body does. When you eat sugar, the pancreas releases insulin to move glucose from the blood into cells. That is also a serious demand. When fat and sugar arrive together, the pancreas must perform both functions at exactly the same time. Imagine making a person run a marathon while simultaneously solving complex equations. Separately, they can handle both. Together, done repeatedly, the combined strain depletes whatever reserve they had. And here is what happens over time that almost nobody talks about. The pancreas develops fatty deposits, just like the liver, just like the belly. This condition is called steatosis. That is when fat cells gradually replace the working functional tissue of the organ. On an ultrasound, a pancreas with steatosis appears brighter than normal. Doctors describe it as hyperechoic. The radiologist writes in the report, diffuse changes. If you have ever seen that phrase in your own medical results and dismissed it, I need you to hear this. Diffuse changes means living tissue has already been replaced. That is not a minor administrative note. That is a direct signal. As more functional tissue is replaced by fat, fewer cells are available to produce enzymes and insulin. This is precisely why, after the age of 55, so many people suddenly develop elevated blood sugar with no obvious cause. The insulin-producing tissue has literally been infiltrated by fat. And the primary driver of that infiltration is the regular, habitual combination of fat and sugar together. Cakes, pastries, pancakes with sweetened condensed milk, buttered sweet rolls, fried pies with jam, ice cream. In every one of these, fat and sugar arrive simultaneously. Does this mean you can never eat anything enjoyable again? No. It means you separate them. If you want something sweet, eat it at a time when you are not also eating fat. A small piece of dark chocolate after lunch? Fine, but not alongside a fatty steak. A spoonful of sour cream in your soup? No problem. But do not follow the soup immediately with a heavily sweetened dessert. The rule is straightforward. Do not combine fatty and sweet foods in the same meal. This single change immediately reduces the load on the pancreas. And specifically about baked goods. For many people, baking is tradition, warmth, love. I am not asking you to give that up. I am asking you to make 3 substitutions. Replace white flour with whole grain flour. Reduce the sugar by half or substitute it with dried fruit. Replace margarine with a small amount of real butter. These 3 swaps dramatically reduce the strain on the pancreas while preserving the experience of the food you love. Try it once and see for yourself. 3 habits down. Fast carbohydrates at the start of an empty morning. First hit. Large, infrequent meals. Second hit. Fat and sugar combined in the same sitting. Third hit. 2 more to go. And the 4th one will probably surprise you, because it damages the pancreas not through food, but through the nervous system, specifically through one particular nerve that connects the brain directly to this organ. It is about what you do or do not do in the first 20 minutes after every meal. You just had lunch. Satisfying. Filling. What happens next? The couch. Lie down for 5 minutes. Let the heaviness pass. Catch a few minutes of television. This feels completely normal. Almost everyone does it. And I'm about to explain why those 5 minutes on the couch may be one of the most consistent forms of damage you are delivering to your pancreas every single day. When you eat, the pancreas releases enzyme fluid into the pancreatic duct, a narrow tube that runs through the full length of the organ and opens into the small intestine. This duct operates on a gravity-assisted principle. The fluid flows downward. When you are upright, gravity helps it move freely. When you lie down, gravity disappears. The flow slows. Enzyme fluid pools in the duct. Pressure rises. If there is even mild swelling of the duct lining, which almost always occurs after a substantial meal, the duct narrows further. The enzymes cannot exit. They back up and begin activating inside the gland. The same self-digestion mechanism happening in miniature every day after every meal you lie down from. There is an additional problem. When you lie down after eating, stomach contents can reflux, that is, flow backward into the esophagus. The acid from your stomach reaches the shared junction where the bile duct and the pancreatic duct both empty into the intestine. Acid exposure at that junction causes spasm, a sudden tightening of the smooth muscle there. Spasm blocks drainage. Enzymes are trapped. So that innocent 5-minute rest after lunch is actually delivering a chronic, daily, cumulative blow. Not once in a while, every single day. What should you do instead? In Japanese culture, there is an unspoken rule. After eating, 20 minutes of light activity, not exercise, not a run, not squats, simply being upright and moving gently. Walk around the room, wash the dishes, step onto the balcony and breathe fresh air. Japanese physicians have a phrase for it, the post-meal walk for the pancreas. And this is not cultural tradition alone. Research supports it. Just 15 to 20 minutes of gentle walking after a meal improves the drainage of pancreatic secretions by 30 to 40%. Simultaneously, blood sugar peaks are reduced because working muscles absorb glucose from the bloodstream without requiring insulin. 1 simple action, 2 direct benefits. The rule to remember: after you eat, stay upright for at least 20 minutes. Ideally, walk slowly, without effort, without breaking a sweat, around the room, down the hallway, around the block. If your legs do not allow walking, sit upright with a straight back, just not horizontal in those first 20 minutes. One more related rule. Your last meal of the day should be at least 3 hours before sleep. Not 1 hour, not 90 minutes, 3 hours. If you eat at 10 in the evening and lie down at 11, you get the full combination: horizontal position, slow drainage, enzyme pooling, acid reflux, everything at once. 4 habits covered. Now the 5th. the one that has nothing to do with what you eat. It is about what happens inside your mind and nervous system. Right now, some of you are thinking, what does anxiety have to do with the pancreas? That is a digestive organ. What does the brain have to do with it? The connection is direct, physical, and anatomical. It runs through a structure called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the human body. It originates in the brainstem, travels down through the neck alongside the esophagus, wraps around the heart and lungs, passes through the stomach, and reaches the pancreas. It controls the organ directly, commanding it to release enzymes or hold back, to increase blood flow or reduce it, to relax the ducts or constrict them. The vagus nerve is a literal physical cable connecting your emotional state to your pancreatic function. When you feel calm, safe, and relaxed, this nerve operates in what physiologists call the rest and digest mode. Ducts stay relaxed. Enzymes move freely into the intestine. Blood flow to the organ is healthy. Everything works. Now picture the opposite. You are worried about your children, your finances, your health, the news. You lie down at night, but your thoughts keep running. You wake up already carrying a weight in your chest, a knot in your throat, a background current of dread. That is chronic stress. In that state, the body shifts into fight or flight mode. The adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones. Blood is redirected away from internal organs toward the large muscles. Digestion is deprioritized. The body is in survival mode. The pancreatic ducts go into spasm. Blood flow to the gland drops. Enzyme fluid stagnates. And then, in this state of chronic background tension, you sit down and eat. The stomach receives food, but the pancreas is not ready. It is in spasm. Its blood supply is reduced. Its ducts are constricted. Enzymes are produced and released with difficulty. Food is incompletely broken down, hence the heaviness, the bloating, the discomfort. And if this happens day after day, month after month, the tissue of the glands suffers from chronic oxygen deprivation. Cells die. They are replaced by scar tissue. Fibrosis begins, the irreversible change described at the very start. Researchers at Columbia University demonstrated that stress hormones, specifically the catecholamines, which include adrenaline and related compounds, trigger a chain reaction in pancreatic tissue. These hormones stimulate the growth of nerve endings in and around inflamed tissue. Those nerve endings then produce still more stress hormones. The cycle feeds itself. Stress damages the pancreas. A damaged pancreas sends pain signals. Pain amplifies stress. The loop closes. And there is a second piece of research that is even more striking. Scientists discovered that the pancreas contains a specific protective hormone at a higher concentration than any other organ in the body. This hormone helps enzyme fluid leave the glands safely and enter the intestine without damaging the tissue along the way. But under chronic stress, its levels collapse. Within approximately 18 hours of sustained stress, it becomes almost undetectable in the tissue. The protection shuts off. The pancreas is left exposed to its own enzymes with no defense. This is why habit number 5, chronic unmanaged stress, is more destructive than a poor breakfast. You can eat perfectly. You can eat 5 times a day in small portions. You can never combine fat and sugar. You can walk after every meal. But if you live in a constant state of anxiety, your pancreas will continue to deteriorate. What you put in your stomach matters. What runs through your head matters equally. Here is a concrete tool for this. An ancient Chinese practice now validated by modern neuroscience. Diaphragmatic breathing. In Eastern traditions, it is called belly breathing and has been used in Qigong practice for more than 2,000 years. Science has confirmed exactly why it works. Here is how to do it. Sit comfortably. Place one hand flat on your chest, the other on your abdomen just below the navel. Take a slow breath in through your nose for a count of 4. Make sure your belly rises, not your chest. The hand on your belly should move outward. The hand on your chest should remain still. Hold the breath for a count of 2. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. The exhale is longer than the inhale. This is essential, not optional. Your belly gently draws inward. Then begin the next cycle. 5 to 7 cycles 3 times a day, before breakfast, before lunch, and before sleep. Why does it work? The extended exhale directly activates the vagus nerve and switches the nervous system from fight or flight into rest and digest mode. Pancreatic ducts relax, blood flow to the organ recovers, spasm clears. When you sit down to eat after those breathing cycles, the pancreas is ready, calm, well supplied, functioning properly. 5 habits on the table. Now the question becomes, how do you know how much damage has already been done? There are 3 signs the pancreas sends to the surface of the body that you can check for yourself right now. Look at your chest, your abdomen, your shoulders. Do you see tiny bright red dots, round, vivid, about the size of a pinhead or slightly larger? They do not itch, do not hurt, do not flake. They simply sit on the skin like small drops of red paint. Many people assume they are minor skin blemishes, age spots, or broken capillaries. They may actually be what is known as Tugilin symptom, small vascular aneurysms that form when pancreatic enzymes leak into the bloodstream and damage the walls of tiny capillaries. The more of these dots you see, the more active the underlying inflammatory process. If you have not 1 or 2, but a scattering, 10, 20, 30 across the chest and belly, treat this as a clinical warning, not a cosmetic inconvenience. The second sign, darkening of the skin in certain areas. Look carefully at the back of your neck, your armpits, the inner folds of your groin. If the skin in those areas appears darker than the surrounding skin, velvety in texture, and no amount of washing changes it, that is not dirt and not a tan. This condition is directly tied to impaired insulin sensitivity. When the pancreas has been overworked for years, producing ever-increasing amounts of insulin in an attempt to manage chronically high blood sugar, the body's cells gradually stop responding to it. Insulin accumulates in the bloodstream in abnormal quantities, and that excess insulin causes characteristic darkening in skin folds. If you see this on yourself, you are not looking at a skin condition. You are looking at a metabolic signal telling you that your pancreas has been overburdened for a long time, and that you are approaching serious blood sugar dysregulation. The third sign, persistently dry, flaking skin and cracks at the corners of the mouth. When the pancreas can no longer produce sufficient enzymes, dietary fat stops being properly absorbed, and fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K are absorbed exclusively through fat. Without vitamin A, skin dries and flakes, particularly at the elbows, knees, and heels. Without vitamin D, bones and muscles weaken. Without vitamin E, skin loses elasticity, and the corners of the mouth crack and split. You buy lotions, hand cream, lip balm, but the problem is not your skin. The problem is a pancreas that cannot process fat, and therefore cannot deliver these vitamins to the bloodstream. 3 signals. Red pinpoint spots on the torso, darkened velvety skin in body folds, and dry, cracking skin with cracked lip corners. If 2 of these 3 apply to you, that is a concrete reason to specifically and deliberately evaluate your pancreatic function with a doctor. Which tests do you need? Here is the exact list. First, serum amylase, an enzyme produced by the pancreas that spills into the blood in elevated amounts when the tissue is inflamed. Second, serum lipase, a more specific marker, elevated when the actual tissue of the gland has been damaged. Third, fecal elastase. This measures how effectively the pancreas is doing its job. Elastase 1 in the stool reflects the organ's functional capacity. A low result means significant functional tissue has been lost and enzyme output is insufficient. Fourth, glycated hemoglobin. This reflects average blood sugar levels over the preceding 3 months. An elevated result means the insulin-producing capacity of the pancreas is already compromised. And separately, an abdominal ultrasound. This shows the size of the gland, its structural consistency, the presence of swelling, cysts, or calcifications in the ducts. If the radiologist report says diffuse changes, the tissue has already been altered. Do not panic, but do not file it away and forget it either. Bring the results to a gastroenterologist. Before that appointment, here is something you can check right now. Find the midline of your abdomen, the center line running between your navel and the lower edge of your breastbone. Place 3 fingers there, index, middle, and ring fingers, and press gently. Not hard, just firmly enough to feel what is underneath. If you notice tension, firmness, or sensitivity at that spot, this may reflect congestion, swelling, or spasm in the area of the pancreas. A healthy point feels soft, yielding, and painless. A stressed one feels tight and reactive. This is not a substitute for tests and imaging, but it is a quick, immediate way to start listening to your body. Now, the recovery protocol. Specific foods, specific recipes, specific daily actions. Forget everything you have heard about aggressive elimination diets and total fasting. We are not going to punish the body. We are going to feed it correctly so that every item on the plate functions as a gentle form of support. The guiding principle is 3 words: warm, soft, frequent. Warm because cold food causes duct spasm. Soft because hard, fried, or coarse food demands a massive enzyme response. Frequent, 4 to 5 times a day in portions no larger than 2 fists. Write those 3 words somewhere you will see them. First food, pumpkin. Ordinary pumpkin. The kind that piles up at markets in autumn and costs next to nothing. For the pancreas, it is an exceptional food. It contains almost no coarse fiber that irritates the gland, but it is rich in soluble fiber, the kind that coats the intestinal lining and reduces inflammation. It contains carotenoids, plant pigments that protect cells from damage. And critically, pumpkin alkalizes the intestinal environment, which reduces the aggressiveness of digestive enzymes. The best preparation is pumpkin puree. Cut it into cubes, cook in a small amount of water for 15 to 20 minutes until soft, then mash with a fork or blend smooth. Add half a teaspoon of honey, a pinch of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of real butter. Eat it warm as breakfast or as a snack between lunch and dinner. There is a dish from Caucasian tradition given to anyone with abdominal pain, children and elders alike. Pumpkin porridge with honey and turmeric. Take 200 grams of pumpkin cut into small cubes, cover with 1 cup of water, and cook on low heat until soft. Add 3 tablespoons of millet, specifically millet, not wheat, and cook another 10 minutes. At the very end, stir in 1 teaspoon of honey and a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds known to science. Combined with warm pumpkin, it acts gently without irritating the mucous membranes. Millet provides satiety and a light source of protein. Every ingredient is available at any grocery store. Second food, buckwheat. Plain, ordinary buckwheat. For the pancreas, it is close to ideal. It digests easily, does not cause blood sugar spikes, and is rich in B vitamins, which the pancreas specifically needs for cellular repair. Cook it in water, not milk. Milk makes digestion heavier. A small drizzle of olive oil or flaxseed oil, half a teaspoon, is a healthy addition. Third food, oat jelly. Not oatmeal porridge, specifically jelly. The difference is substantial. Porridge contains whole grains with coarse fiber that the pancreas must work to process. Jelly is a mucilaginous extract, a thin, viscous liquid that coats the walls of the stomach and intestine like a protective film. The recipe: take 3 tablespoons of plain whole grain rolled oats, not instant, and soak them in 1 glass of warm water the night before. In the morning, strain through a fine sieve and discard the oats. Place the cloudy, slightly thick liquid on the lowest possible heat and stir continuously for 3 to 4 minutes until it thickens slightly. Drink it warm 30 minutes before breakfast. This is one of the most evidence-supported protective measures for pancreatic health available: inexpensive, straightforward, and scientifically grounded. What to remove from your diet during recovery? First, everything fried. Frying in oil converts any food into a high-demand item for the pancreas. Boil, steam, braise, or bake instead. Second, all spicy foods: pepper, mustard, horseradish, and hot sauces. These trigger reflex spasm of the ducts. Third, carbonated drinks. Carbon dioxide stretches the stomach, provokes acid reflux, and increases pressure on the gland. Fourth, processed meats and smoked products. These contain nitrites, preservatives, and hidden fat that damage the pancreas quietly over time. Fifth, fresh yeast-leavened white bread. Yeast fermentation produces gas and bloating in the gut, which creates additional pressure on an already inflamed organ. One more rule that makes an immediate difference: the order of foods at every meal. Always start with vegetables or soup, then eat your protein: chicken, fish, egg, or cottage cheese. Only at the end, add a small amount of complex carbohydrates: buckwheat, a small piece of bread, or potato. When vegetables and protein arrive first, they slow the absorption of carbohydrates. Blood sugar rises gradually, and the pancreas operates in a sustainable, moderate range, rather than lurching from one extreme to the other. Now, the recipe for a 2-ingredient drink that gently reduces inflammation and actively supports pancreatic recovery. Both ingredients cost almost nothing. Both are available in any pharmacy or grocery store. Flaxseeds and chamomile. No exotic supplements, no expensive powders. 2 of the oldest medicinal substances known to human history, used long before the pharmaceutical industry existed. Why these 2? When flax seeds come into contact with warm water, they release mucilage, a thick, translucent, slightly viscous substance. This mucilage coats the stomach and intestinal walls, forming a protective barrier. It reduces the aggressiveness of digestive enzymes against inflamed tissue, decreases irritation, and gently promotes the outflow of pancreatic secretions, helping enzyme fluid move in the right direction. Chamomile is a natural antispasmodic. It relaxes smooth muscle in the ducts, reduces swelling, and decreases local inflammation. Together, these 2 work as a single system. Flax protects and coats. Chamomile relaxes and soothes. Here is the recipe. The evening before, take 1 tablespoon of whole flax seeds, whole, not ground, and place them in 1 glass of plain water at room temperature. Leave them overnight for 8 to 10 hours. During that time, the seeds swell and release their protective mucilage into the water. In the morning, without straining, place the glass on the lowest heat setting. Add 1 chamomile tea bag or 1 teaspoon of dried chamomile flowers. Bring the liquid to the first small bubbles. Not a rolling boil, just the moment when the first tiny bubbles appear at the bottom. Remove from heat immediately. Cover and steep for 5 minutes. Remove the chamomile. The result is a warm, slightly thick drink with a gentle herbal quality. Drink it 30 minutes before breakfast in small sips. The flax seeds remaining at the bottom can be eaten. If the texture bothers you, strain through a fine sieve. The course is 14 days, then a 1-week break, then repeat if desired. Many people notice relief by the 3rd or 4th day. The morning heaviness under the rib fades, bloating diminishes, and the sense of lightness after eating returns. One important warning: if you have gallstones, even if you have been told they are small, consult your physician before starting this drink. Flaxseed mucilage has a mild bile-stimulating effect. If large stones are present, this could trigger movement. Safety first. Now, 2 acupressure points. Acupressure means applying firm pressure to specific points on the body, a technique from traditional Chinese medicine. These 2 points are clinically recognized as beneficial for digestive function and for relieving spasm in the pancreatic ducts. The first is the point called Zhusanli, in Chinese medicine, stomach 36. To find it, sit down and place your hand over your kneecap with your fingers pointing downward. Where the tip of your little finger lands, just to the outer edge of the shin bone, that is the point. Press it firmly with the pad of your thumb and make slow, circular, clockwise movements. 30 presses on one leg, then 30 on the other. The pressure should be firm, but never painful. The second point is Hegu, large intestine 4. Find the soft, fleshy area between your thumb and index finger on either hand. Press into the deepest part of that webbing with the thumb of the opposite hand and massage in slow circles for 30 seconds on each hand. This point relieves spasm throughout the abdominal cavity and supports the outflow of secretion from the pancreatic ducts. The flaxseed chamomile drink, the breathing exercise, and these 2 pressure points form your daily basic toolkit. Now, all of this comes together in a 7-day recovery protocol, step by step, morning, afternoon, and evening. Morning. When you wake, do not jump up. Stay lying down for 1 minute and perform 5 cycles of diaphragmatic belly breathing right there in bed. Inhale through your nose, belly rises. Exhale through your mouth, belly gently drops. Then get up and drink the glass of flaxseed chamomile drink you prepared the night before. Sip it slowly. Then wait 20 to 30 minutes. During that time, do another set of belly breathing, 7 to 10 cycles standing or sitting upright with a straight back. Then the acupressure. 30 presses on Zhusanli on each leg, 30 seconds of circular massage on Hegu on each hand. The entire routine takes 7 to 8 minutes. Then breakfast. For the first 3 days, oat jelly followed by 1 soft-boiled egg. No juice, no sweet roll, no sugar. Warm food, a modest portion. Eat slowly. The pancreas benefits enormously from thorough chewing. The more food is broken down in the mouth, the fewer enzymes the gland must produce. From day 4 onward, add pumpkin puree or pumpkin porridge with turmeric. After breakfast, 20 minutes upright. Walk around, wash the dishes, stand by the window. Midday, lunch 3 to 4 hours after breakfast. A modest plate, 2 fists of food, no more. Sequence: vegetable soup or cooked vegetable salad first, then protein, boiled chicken, steamed fish, an egg, or cottage cheese. Carbohydrates last and in small amounts. Buckwheat cooked in water with a few drops of flaxseed oil is an excellent choice. After lunch, 20 more minutes of gentle activity. Afternoon snack, 2 to 3 hours after lunch, 1 glass of fresh kefir at 2.5 to 3.5% fat, a small handful of walnuts, or a small apple baked in the oven. Baked apple is particularly good for the recovering pancreas. It is soft, warm, without coarse fiber, and its natural sweetness does not cause a sudden blood sugar spike. Evening. Dinner no later than 3 hours before bedtime. Something light. Steamed fish with braised vegetables, or buckwheat with a small piece of boiled chicken, or simply cottage cheese with half a teaspoon of honey. Nothing fatty, nothing fried, nothing sweet after dinner. After eating, 20 minutes upright again, then 5 to 7 cycles of belly breathing before sleep. This switches the nervous system into rest mode and allows the pancreas to work quietly and efficiently through the night. 30 minutes before bed, soak your next morning's flaxseed drink. 1 tablespoon of whole flax seeds in 1 glass of room temperature water until morning. The complete protocol: 7 days, 3 sessions per day, step by step. No expensive medications, no complicated pharmaceutical regimes. Pumpkin, buckwheat, rolled oats, flax seeds, chamomile, kefir, eggs, and vegetables, plus the discipline to follow through. Now, the most important psychological warning, the trap that causes most people to abandon recovery on day 3. It is called, "I already feel better." By day 3 or 4, the heaviness under the rib genuinely does ease. Bloating decreases, a sense of lightness returns, and the thought arrives, well, it passed. I can go back to normal. And back they go. The morning roll with sweet tea, the large dinner, the couch after eating, the anxious scroll through the news before bed. Within a week, everything returns. Because feeling better is not the same as being healed. Feeling better is the body's first response to the removal of an irritant. Inflammation in the gland does not resolve in 3 days. Scar tissue does not dissolve in a week. For the pancreas to genuinely recover, you need at least 14 days of a full course. And you need to make these habit changes permanent. Not temporary, not until you feel better. Permanent. I am not asking you to become an ascetic. I am asking you to change 5 habits. Not all at once, 1 per week, starting with the easiest. Just stop lying down after meals for 20 minutes. That costs nothing. It requires no money, no equipment, no special food. Simply stand up and move for 20 minutes after you eat. 1 habit, 1 step. Within a few days, you will feel the difference. Then replace the morning juice with a glass of warm water. Then add the flaxseed chamomile drink. Then start eating more often in smaller portions. Finally, add 3 cycles of diaphragmatic breathing before each meal. 5 changes, 5 weeks. And your pancreas has the conditions it needs to truly recover. Here is the practical summary. If you experience heaviness under the left rib, bloating after meals, nausea, or the sensation that food sits in your stomach for hours without moving, do not attribute it to aging. These are signals from an overloaded pancreas. Get 4 specific blood and stool tests: serum amylase, serum lipase, fecal elastase, and glycated hemoglobin. Get an abdominal ultrasound. And go to a gastroenterologist, not with a vague complaint of something hurts, but with your actual results in hand. A physician who sees an informed, prepared patient works with that patient very differently. At the same time, begin the protocol. The flaxseed chamomile drink 30 minutes before breakfast. Warm, soft, frequent meals. No combining fatty and sweet in the same sitting. 20 minutes upright after every meal. 3 cycles of belly breathing before each meal. This is not folk medicine as an alternative to medical care. These are evidence-supported tools that work alongside treatment, not instead of it. The pancreas forgives a great deal if you act in time. Do not wait for it to pass on its own. It will not pass. It will only worsen. But if you start today, your body will respond within days.